Hi there, I'm Stone from Mountaintop Kitchen, and today we're baking the coziest donuts you've never had. Sweet potato cake donuts, baked golden, dipped in maple glaze, and showered in crispy maple bacon. Let's get that oven on and bake some magic. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that we need to do is we need to prepare our sweet potato because it is the star of the show. So I have kind of a smallish, you don't really need a very big sweet potato for this small batch of donuts. We're going to just take a fork and prick it several times because we're going to be roasting this and we want it to cook all the way through really nicely. Now the sweet potato will add some moisture, some natural sweetness, and some rich flavor to our donuts. So now that we've got that pricked, washed of course first, we're going to pop this in the oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, for about 45 minutes to an hour. We want this to get nice and soft and caramelized. Now you might see the skin start to char a little bit. That's okay, because we're going to scoop the flesh out of the potato. Now, so we're going to get that in the oven in just a minute. Now the potato and the next thing, the candied bacon that we're going to sprinkle on top of our donuts, these two things you can actually prepare a day in advance. And so you can kind of break this up and not have to do it all together. So we're going to take 4 or 5 slices of bacon. Now I'm using a thinnish bacon, but you can use a thicker bacon if you like. And I have about 2 to 3 tablespoons of good maple syrup from Canada and some brown sugar. I'm just going to brush the bacon with the syrup, get it coated nicely all across all of the bacon. It only takes a second. You want this to get nice and crispy in the oven and be caramelized with this brown sugar that we're going to put on it. Okay, you can put on as much as you like or as little. I think that's good enough. And now some brown sugar. We're just going to sprinkle this on top. Oh, this is going to be so good. Now we're going to be baking this at about 350 Fahrenheit in a convection oven. And we want it to get nice and crunchy, but we don't want to burn it. You just want it to be nice and crunchy looking. And so keep an eye on it. We're going to bake it for about 20 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit in our convection oven. So we've got that done. Let's pop both of these things in the oven and then we can get right back here and start making our donut dough. Okay, the bacon is ready. It's freshly out of the oven, but we do need to let this cool off completely where it's nice and crispy and cold before we can chop it up to make it our sprinkles for on top of our donuts. So we'll just set this aside and let it cool, and then we'll come back and chop it up later. Okay, now that we've got our candied bacon ready and it's cooling, we'll slice that up in a little bit. And we have our sweet potato baked, nice and caramelized. We can get moving on with our dough. So we're going to start with about 1.5 cups or 180 grams of all-purpose flour. We're going to put that through the sieve. And then we have about a tablespoon of cornstarch. That will give a nice soft crumb to our donuts. And we have about 1/2 teaspoon of salt to balance out with the sweetness. We have 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. That will help give a rise to our donuts. We've got the structure with the flour, but we need to have the rise with the leaveners. And then we have about 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon for a nice, smoky, warm, cozy flavor. So we're going to throw all that in and just run that through the sieve. And you might have some little nuggets left, just work those out. And then just whisk it a little bit to make sure it's all fully integrated. And then we're going to just set this aside and start working on our wet ingredients. So to start with the wet ingredients, we are going to cream our butter and our sugar. We want to whip some air into this, and the sugar and the butter being whipped together and creamed first will help to do that. So let's just get all that good butter out of there. And now I love this mixture. I've said it before, but I like the shape of it. It's KitchenAid. It's the can shape that really makes it worth getting. It's also cordless, so you don't have a cord in your way. And how many times have you set your hand mixer down and it flops over, it goes to the side? That won't happen with this. It's very sturdy. You just set it down and you're done. So let's go ahead and get this nice and whipped up. Start on slow at first. Get it creamed. Just do this for about a couple minutes until your sugar and your butter is nicely creamed together. Now there's not a whole lot of butter in here, so it's not going to be super creamy and smooth like you might have with a cake. But there we go, that's good enough. Now to that, we are going to add 1 large egg. Let's plop that in there. We have about 1/3 of a cup or 80 grams of our roasted sweet potato that's been mashed up. We just scooped it out and mashed it up. About a teaspoon of vanilla. And we have about 1/3 of a cup or 80 grams of, now this is about 1/4 of a cup and 60 grams of milk or yogurt. We have some Greek yogurt here today, so we're just going to get that in there too. Now this will add some nice moisture to our donuts, which we do not want to have dry donuts. So we'll make sure we get all of this in there. Okay, so those are all of our ingredients for the wet ingredients. So let's just mix those up. You just want to mix until it's nicely incorporated. And I think we're there. That's good enough. Okay, let's set that aside over here. Let's bring our dry back over. Let's get rid of this. And just mix in our wet into our dry. Okay, so we're just going to get our wet mixture poured in here and make sure we get all of it out. We don't want to leave any of this flavor or moisture behind. Okay, that's good enough. And we're just going to mix the two together. You want to be careful not to overmix or be too vigorous at this point because we do not want to develop the gluten. We want to have a nice and soft donut. By the way, did you know that yesterday was National Donut Day? When I actually made my first batch of these for my still photographs, I did that on National Donut Day. It was a lot of fun. Now this is a really thick batter, so please expect it to be such. And we're going to spoon it into this mold after we grease it up a little bit. But so let's just keep mixing this. Don't overmix, just until you see no more flour lingering around, which I think we've pretty much have got it right there. Now remember, this is a small batch, so this will only yield about 6 to 8 donuts in this mold. And this is a 3-inch weld donut mold. So each donut would be 3 inches, you'll get 6 to 8. Depends on how much you fill them up. You only want to fill these up about 3/4 of the way full because they're going to rise. So, okay, so we'll be right back in a minute and we're going to fill the donut mold and get to baking. Okay, we're back. And as you can see, I cleaned up a little bit and now we're ready to fill our donut molds. Now this is, I believe the brand name is Walfos. It's they have 6 wells and they're about 3 inches each across. So I will put a link down below to my Amazon account where you can pick these up if you would like to have these same ones. It comes in a pack of 3, a blue, a green, and a red one. So anyway, let's go ahead. What we're going to do is just spoon the dough into these wells. But before we do that, we're going to spray because even though these are silicone, you never know. I don't trust it. They could stick. So just spray a little bit and then kind of make sure you wipe the baking spray or oil, whatever you're using, around really well up and down the stems of these wells, because after all this work, you don't want your donuts to stick, that's for sure. And you don't want to pull a donut out and have a big hole in the top of it either. So let's make sure that we, even though we're using silicone and supposedly non-stick, I don't trust it. So I'm going to use a little bit of baking spray to make sure that mine don't stick. Now, we're just going to spoon this into these wells. This will take a little bit of time. I'm not going to torture you by watching me fill all these up. So I'll just fill one and then we'll come back when they're all full. Now you want to make sure that you don't fill them more than 3/4 full, because you want to have a nice donut shape. You don't want to have like a mushroom top or bottom onto your donuts. So what you can do then is you can either take the back of a spoon and run it around to try to even it out, or you can, what's easier is just to wet your finger and then go around and push it down. I find that the easiest way to do it. Your finger doesn't stick to anything and you can even it out really nice that way. So I'll be back as soon as all of these are full, and we're going to pop it into the oven. Okay, so as you can see, we got about 8 donuts out of that batch. It's a small batch, so if you'd like to have 12 to 16 donuts, just double the batch, and that's what you'll get. So we're going to go ahead and stick these in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit in a convection oven for about 12 to 14 minutes. You do want to keep an eye on them, make sure that they don't burn, of course, but they're done when you touch them and they spring back a little bit. But about 13 to 14 minutes should do it. You probably want to pull them out about then. Okay, so let's get these into the oven and we'll start to make our maple glaze. Okay, we're back. And through the magic of YouTube, we already had a batch of donuts in the oven. We pulled them out. We're going to let them cool down on the rack for about 5 minutes before we take them out and let them cool down completely. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and make our maple glaze. Now, your maple glaze can be as thick or as thin as you want it to be. If you want a thicker glaze, you're probably going to want to use about 1/3 a cup of maple syrup. If you want a thinner glaze, maybe 1/2 cup. So that's about 110 to 120 grams of maple syrup. We're going to go for a thicker glaze today. So we have 1 cup or 120 grams of confectioner's sugar here that we've already sifted. And to that, we're going to add 14 grams of melted butter. And we're going to add about a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So just plop that in there too. I'm going to eyeball it. All right. And since I'm going for a thicker glaze, I'm going to use 1/3 cup of maple syrup. Now this is some good maple syrup from Canada. It's Kirkland brand from Costco, but it's really good. So let's go ahead and get 1/3 cup in here. And like I said, if you want a thinner glaze, which is okay, it's good either way, then you probably want to do about 1/2 cup. So let's just get this all mixed up. Go kind of slow because you don't want your confectioner's sugar or your powdered sugar to go flying out of the bowl. Now, you don't want to glaze your donuts until they're completely cooled, or your glaze will go running off the sides. So we got this. All you have to do is just get this mixed in so you have no more powdered sugar lingering around. And I think pretty much we're there. We've got it. So there's our glaze. And it's nice and thick. It's not super, super, super runny. So we're just going to let that sit here for a minute. And as soon as these have cooled down, they've been here for about 5 minutes, so I think we can go ahead and take them out of the donut mold and get them onto the rack. So they're really easy to get out of these silicone molds. you just pop them out. And there's 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so there they are. There's 6 donuts. And we're going to let those finish cooling down. Then we're going to dip them into our maple glaze and top them with our candied bacon that's already cooled and we've already chopped it up. So we'll be right back to do that as soon as these babies have cooled down. Okay, we are ready. We have our 6 donuts here. We have our chopped up candied bacon. It's so yummy, and oh my God, it smells so good. And we have put our glaze into a smaller bowl. Now, this is also a good time to remind you to please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps people to find our content if you do, so we really appreciate it if you could do that. Okay, so the subscribe button is right down there, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube. All right, so let's go ahead and dip these into our glaze. And you just kind of want to kind of turn the donut around so that it swirls off and place it there. Let's do the next one. Now, like I said, this is a somewhat thicker glaze. You can certainly go thinner by using a 1/2 cup of maple syrup instead of a 1/3 cup. And you get a really nice thin glaze. We've done it both ways and we like it both ways, but today we're just going thicker. Okay, almost done here. We just got a couple more. Let the excess run off. And then we're going to get you're going to have quite a bit of glaze here, but that's okay. You do need to have it deep enough so that you can stick the donut down in there and get the glaze on it. Okay. All right. Got it in my fingers. All right, now comes the time when we're going to put the candied bacon on. This is the fun part. You do want to do this while the glaze is still tacky and wet. If you wait till later after the glaze sets, the bacon will just fall right off. So you do want to get it on there as soon as possible. Okay. Looking really good. Put as much or little as you like on each of your donuts. I like a lot, as you can see. Okay, we won't go through all of these, but I'm going to stop right now and eat one of these. Oh, a little bit more bacon on that one. Okay, we've got some more candied bacon back there in the back. So, all right, here we go. Let me try this one right here. Look at that. Oh, it's so good. I don't know if you can see the crumb, but it's so tasty. And it's got a really nice light crumb. And that bacon, that candied bacon on top of the maple syrup glaze, oh my God. The sweet potato integrated into the donut gives it a very mature, smoky, kind of warm flavor along with that cinnamon. It's just so good. I'm gonna keep eating. Oh my God, that is so good. Yum. If you like this recipe, then you might want to try this recipe. I think you'll like it too. And thanks for joining us today at the Mountaintop Kitchen. We'll see you next time. Bye.